I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell politicians to give up the rooms. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth.
God, it's me. Can you hear my plea? Feeling like I'm lost in this world, can't you see? Demons creeping in, trying to take control of me. But I'm just trying to find the light, trying to break free. I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. But why you keep forgetting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feeling like I'm on a leash. Can't find no peace, find no peace. Living in hell, can't you hear my plea? I'm suffocating, can't you see? Why you let these false prophets roam free? While the well-run suffer, can't you see? I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Why you keep targeting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feel like I'm on a leash, can't find no peace.
Hardest battles, strongest soldiers, greatest burden, broadest shoulders, pushing up just like these boulders. This conflict like it's water, still this mercy, take my chalice, seeking grace through all this malice. All of these salty motherfuckers to give out.
Politics and senators, they all the same. Got me stuck in this endless game. But I won't give up, won't play the role. Gotta do what's best
for my soul.
I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell these politicians to give up the room. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth. Living wild but truthfully free. God keep on watching.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. This morning I want to talk about storms, scandals in the system. No shelter, no justice. But before we get into all that, I want to get into a Minnesota legend, Minneapolis, and that is Louis Blaze. And this is Monday Mash Shout, New Love. And we'll be right back right after this.
Damn. The shoulda, coulda, woulda story. For real.
Hit out though.
New love. Oh, I'm searching for a true love. My emotions been through too much. I just really need a new love. Oh, yeah. My heart is fragile, it already been through hell and back. If you not feeling me, why couldn't you just tell me that? I love your energy and felt we were a perfect match. Now see, that's not the case, the reason I can't be attached. Oh girl, you missed your blessing. I learned another lesson and dodged another bullet. Almost laid on the stretcher. You tried to shoot me down, give me the run around. That water hella toxic. I thought I really found a new love. Oh, I'm searching for a true love. My emotions been through too much. I just really need a new love. Oh, yeah. Blind to it, blind to it. Don't know who to trust, so when I find me the one, I'm acting blind to it, blind to it. These women think that you dumb and try to play you for fun, but now I'm blind to it, blind to it. Wish you could keep it real so I can know how you feel and not be blind to it, blind to it. Maybe I'm not the one who deserves true love. I'm a man, but I got feelings too. And I'm a man, but I need healing too. And I am way different from what you're used to. I'm not your average dude, I really built for you. And I know how it feel to love somebody who don't love you back. Know how it feel to trust someone who stabbed you in the back. I heard my intuition tell me I'm under attack. This time I pay attention, I'm finna go and bag a new love. Hey. Oh, I'm searching for a true love. My emotions been through too much. I just really need a new love. Oh, yeah. Blind to it, blind to it. Don't know who to trust, so when I find me the one, I'm acting blind to it, blind to it. These women think that you dumb and try to play you for fun, but now I'm blind to it, blind to it. Wish you could keep it real so I can know how you feel and not be blind to it, blind to it. Maybe I'm not the one who deserves true love.
Hey, that was Louis Blaze, New Love. This morning I got a talk about some good shit. We got some trials going on. You know, we got the Christopher Scher, who murdered Patrick Loyola. And really, this is about, I feel his trial is it a license to kill? And I'm also going to bring you the first day of the 3 officers that were involved. Well, it was more, but this is the first 3 officers that are going to trial in the Tyre Nichols case. So also, I'm going to talk about the rest of what I talked about yesterday, and that was about Ellison. And especially it was because maybe not so much on Facebook, but on Twitter, it was really kind of a big thing. And it was, you know, the Feeding Our Future. And in my eyes, I seen it as Ellison's foggy memory. But first, I want to get into the bad weather we had yesterday. And that is, oh, that's the wrong one. Here it is. But this is the video because we had some tornadoes touch down yesterday. And that's one thing that I wanted to talk about, because I know some people said, well, the storm didn't hit, but it did hit in other areas. Maybe Minneapolis did not get what it was supposed to get. But places like Mankato, places like, you know, Robert you know what's crazy, because I keep on thinking it's Wisconsin and it's actually Minnesota. But there was a tornado near him. And it was like Kenyon, it was, you know, Everett Lee. Minnesota was really, really, in some places, it was very dangerous. So with that being said, I want to get into this little news report that happened, that they did.
Communities in Minnesota and western Wisconsin cleaning up tonight after a day of severe storms. A couple rounds rolled through, but most of the volatile storm was this evening. This was the scene in Faribault. Storm chaser Tim Purrington capturing these images of torrential rain and wind. You can see it blowing across the road, reducing visibility there.
Along with the rain and wind came some hail, from pea and marble sized in some areas to golf ball sized hailstones in Sherburne County. Viewers sending us plenty of video and pictures of that tonight. Also tonight, there are reports of damage to several farm buildings. While the metro saw downed trees and broken branches, some of them landing on power lines. Tonight, 2,800 Xcel Energy customers still without power.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on Fox 9 and Fox Local. I'm Randy Meyer.
And I'm Kelsey Carlson. We do have live team coverage of the aftermath of tonight's storms. Bab Santos is standing by in Faribault with a look at the damage there. But we begin with Chief Meteorologist Ian Leonard, who's been tracking the storms all day, on the air for about 7 hours.
It was one of those days, and you know, we've been talking about this for the past few days, how the atmosphere was at least set up for the grand possibility of severe storms. Now, this is the last 6 hours. The first tornado watch box that was out to the west, that expired at 8 p.m. The second one that is here, that includes the metro, is in the process of being expired from west to east, and just added in the last 2 hours a new tornado watch that is really here in central and southwestern portions of Wisconsin. So let me take you around, because there's one lone rogue little cell well to the north that has been rolling on and off for the past hour. The severe thunderstorm warning still out here for Carleton and St. Louis County until 9:15. You get the idea as this cell begins to scoot north of Duluth all the way into central St. Louis County. Now, I want to take you here into parts of Wisconsin. So once you get to Wausau and all the way over to Marshfield, there are severe thunderstorm warnings and Doppler indicated tornado warnings. These are out of the Fox 9 viewing area, but nonetheless still a part of this massive line of storms that started in southern Minnesota and rolled all the way. We had plenty of reports of storm damage, wind damage, and ping pong to golf ball size hail. But once you slide back to the metro, there's just a couple of lone little dots. One here that is fizzling and fading very quickly just to the northwest of Mankato. Another here that is working through parts of northeastern Goodhue County. Nothing severe. I'll go ahead and say it right now. In terms of the Fox 9 viewing viewing area, let's say the all clear as you get ready to head to bed, that doesn't make today's storms nonetheless impacting. It was all about some very big storms, and in particular here from Goodhue County through Rice and Steele all the way to Blue Earth and parts of Sibley County. Now, the metro went without a direct impact storm, but we have plenty of downed tree and limb reports from Medina through Orono, with a loop here through Chaska, Chanhassen, all the way into Burnsville. An outflow boundary, a gust front without the adjacent storm. Yes, wind damage plentiful across the metro. So as we head to bed, we breathe a sigh of relief. There's nobody who hopes for storms any less than me, and I think we dodged a bullet in terms of the greater Twin Cities metro today. Anyway, we'll talk more about this and of course the forecast as we move forward in time. Forecast doesn't look so bad. We'll see you at 9:30.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Ian. We want to continue our team coverage out in the elements right now.
Kenyon saw damage from a possible tornado, and now rain and lightning, as you just saw there on the map, with the inner picking up again in that one cell. So our Babs Santos is staying safe in nearby Faribault. He joins us live with more on the damage in that area. Babs?
Yeah, a possible tornado doing quite the damage in Goodhue County. Right now, we are about 10 miles down the road in Faribault, but we saw so much, and I want to show it to you right now. The damage this afternoon, you can see this building appearing to have caved in on itself. Mother Nature just flattening it. We were at the scene. Law enforcement was there, busy securing a perimeter, but it is a massive area with so much destruction spread out across acres and acres of farmland. You could see it from miles away, even just driving there. Mother Nature just appears to have ripped apart what was a large shed building, a nearby silo, casting bits and pieces, casting scraps of metal and building materials across miles and miles of field. We did talk to a property owner who said there were not any animals in that building and no one was hurt, but clearly that storm packed quite the punch today, and they will be cleaning up after all of this.
So some areas were hit just because I know that Minneapolis and St. Paul was talked about because they're populated areas, but areas in the rural, were hit. Cato, like I said, if people weren't watching, I think his name is Reed Timmer. He's he has the Dominator that looks like, I don't know, it looks like to me like a Batman truck, car, or whatever you want to call it. But there was a lot of storm chasers around this area because the media, the weather people, hyped this storm up to be something that we had never. And in certain areas, yes, the clouds, the tornadoes and the hail, it was ridiculous. But in some areas, it was the typical, thunderstorm, tornado that we usually get in our areas anyways. So really, to be honest, was the preparedness, was the people being concerned about different things? Yes, you should have been, because you never know what could have happened. You've seen in Kenyon, I mean, you've seen the pictures, there was shit thrown all over every place. So I'm just glad that a lot of people were safe. And infrastructure, that was one thing that I was worried about. It was kind of disrupted in those areas, but it's something that we can, as a community and as Minnesotans, can bring back to ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So what God or what Mother Nature will tear down, we can build back together. So I want to talk about yesterday and Keith Ellison's little foggy memory, whatever. Because he was asked about his meeting that he had with Feeding Our Future defendants and his donations and things like that. So I want to get into it because I got a little bit about this. So I want to get into everything that came down to the Feeding Our Future and how they led up to it. So with that being said, here is the little, what we watched yesterday, a little bit of. Here's their news story.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison faced pointed questions today from lawmakers about a meeting he held with people who were later charged in the Feeding Our Future federal fraud case.
Republicans on the House Fraud Oversight Committee say it raises questions about Ellison's oversight. Tom Hauser has more in the exchange between Ellison and lawmakers.
Please, Mr. Attorney General, Please proceed.
Attorney General Keith Ellison spent nearly 2 hours explaining how his office fights fraud in state government-funded programs. But the bulk of the time was spent explaining his meeting in December of 2021 with several people later charged in the Feeding Our Future fraud case.
The meeting was recorded without my knowledge.
In that meeting with East African business leaders, Ellison promised to look into their claims the state was unfairly trying to shut down their food programs.
This has my attention. I'm extremely frustrated by it. Walls agrees with me that this piddly, stupid stuff running small people out of business is terrible.
I find it difficult to believe that you didn't have some suspicion about who these people were.
Republicans on the House Fraud Oversight Committee questioned why Ellison appeared to be sympathetic to people who ultimately were proven to have taken part in a $250 million fraud scheme.
Just not how it works to believe that I know every single thing that happened on every single file in my office.
Ellison says he can't track every single case 430 attorneys are working on.
When I find out what really is going on, when I go back to my office, I find out that that person is not credible. So that's what you're seeing right there.
But Republicans say he should have known long before that December 2021 meeting.
My understanding is the FBI started their investigation in May of 21.
What we're really talking about here is a clip 3.5 years ago that is before the convictions, before the indictments, before the search warrant.
The Attorney General also made it clear not only did he not help anyone who was in that secretly recorded meeting, he also says he did not accept campaign donations from anyone in that meeting. At the Capitol, Tom Hauser, 5
So we are going to, because Tom Hauser is a DFL dick sucker, and I'm just going to call him, he's a bitch. And I'm going to say that nigga knows nothing about our community, and we need to keep it that way. He doesn't know what it means to be individuals that are faced with a lot, and he doesn't know a damn thing about our community. And I'll be the first to say that. And that's for damn sure. Oh, no, I didn't hit it. Maybe I did. Bookmarks. Oh, man, this is it went all the way down. I don't know what it's doing. Okay, here's the, why is it doing this? Oh, wow. Of course. I want to go into, because this wasn't the only interaction that he had yesterday, where they were talking about feeding our future. And to be honest, you know, as an attorney general, you know, he kind of left it where, you know, the blame wouldn't be, you know, so much always focused on, I don't know what the hell that is, focused on him. And it's wild to me is because, you know, when are we going to start? I'm not saying that we shouldn't be, you know, our you know, attorney generals and all that. Shouldn't be knowing that shit, but it's like, how didn't you know? And that's what it should be, the big, you know, scandal. That's what it should be. So this is a little breakdown yesterday that they had, the whatever you want to call them, Minnesota GOP House. They did a little thread yesterday about, you know, Walter Hudson, blah, 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 whatever. So I want to go through it a little bit, right? And there was things that we should have, maybe, you know, Keith should have known and others should have known. And
State Agency Oversight Committee, we had Attorney General Keith Ellison come in to account for this released video that details a meeting. It's an hour-long audio of him talking to folks, some of whom were then later indicted in the Feeding Our Future scandal. And in the course of this audio, you hear him saying that he's going to fight state agencies, that he's in a battle with the state agencies. He's the state agency's lawyer. Like, his whole job is to represent the state. And they were currently being sued at that time by Feeding Our Future, which was on their radar since November of 2020, and this meeting took place in December of 2021. So today in committee, he played dumb. He acted like he didn't know who these people were. He didn't draw the connection between them and Feeding Our Future. He found out after the fact that, oh, these are bad people, and that he did all the right things. But he didn't speak to the content of what he actually said. He didn't provide a justification for why, in a meeting with constituents who happened to be associated with Feeding Our Future, he was more concerned with, in his own words, keeping business going. Keeping the business running. In other words, these grant recipients who are getting money from state agencies, ostensibly to go out and feed children and do other benevolent things, that his focus was on their business, the grant recipient. Now, there's 4 different people here we need to be concerned about. There's the taxpayers who provide the resources. There's the state agencies who manage the grants. There's the grant recipients themselves, which is where the problem is. And then there's the people who supposedly are getting the services. Now, of those 4 people, the Attorney General's focus seems to be solely on the grant recipients and their ability to stay in business. Shouldn't the concern be for the fidelity, the integrity of the taxpayers' dollars, for the ability of the state agencies to hold those recipients accountable? And for the end user, the person being served, actually receiving whatever vital service they're supposedly receiving? And this is one of the questions that, too few people ask about the Feeding Our Future scandal, is we were talking about thousands upon thousands of children who were supposedly getting fed. Who actually weren't. Which raises the question, how did nobody notice? Because if this need was so urgent, don't you think the lack of it actually being met would be noticed by somebody? Especially the state agencies responsible for holding them accountable, and the Attorney General's office that was engaged in supposedly defending those agencies against the lawsuit from the recipients? Today's comments in the committee hearing in fraud here at the House of Representatives just raises so many more questions that have yet to be answered, but we're not done yet. Stay tuned.
It's not a show, and that's the biggest thing for me is it's not a show. It's not a show, right? So here's 3 clips from that December 1st, or 2021 meeting that he had with Feeding Our Future, Keith Ellison.
Walls agrees with me, and so this has my attention. I'm extremely frustrated by it, but we are in the middle of a battle with the agencies now. And I can tell you this, Walls agrees with me that this piddly, stupid stuff running small people out of business is terrible. But it's the problem of it's the problem of, it's the classic problem. If he's here and this guy here is giving these businesses a hard time, these folks somehow say, hey,
and he the lawyer.
they're picking on me. And he's like, oh, us? No, we're not. And so it's this back and forth. So now what we got to do is make it clear that this guy has got to stop it, right? But it's the but he knows that there's a lot of unfair, discriminatory stuff going on with East African businesses. I know it. These department heads, Jody now know that we know it. And she says we're going to stop doing it, but I don't believe it until you tell me they've stopped doing it.
Damn. That's wild. So that is what Keith had said yesterday during the Fraud and Oversight Committee hearing, right? And here's the clip too. And in this clip, the meeting participants complain that the food distribution sites have been closed down by state agencies. Attorney Keith Ellison then gives them his government email and asks them to send him names of individuals who probably won't survive unless they get their money soon, and pledges to call agency leaders into his office and demand some explanations. Immediately after meeting, participants continue talking about the Safari restaurant and main player in the Feeding Our Future scandal, and even mention a lawsuit between Safari and the Department of Education, Keith Ellison's client.
Still got people who
these are children that need food, and it's very serious. So instead of being able to do more than one thing as a huge department with tons of money, it's we need to pause while we figure something out.
But as they're pausing, they're running people out of business.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's the intention.
That's the point. You are a vendor, you are a vendor, you put $200,000 into this, you sold this food to this person, and all of a sudden you're not getting your money. What happens to you?
April 30th.
You're done?
You're done.
And you still got people who you owe money.
Yes.
And then people are, and then you decide, okay, let me pause until I get reambused, and people are still coming to your door saying, hey, you just gave us food last week, we were counting on you. We don't have food. And nobody
There
gonna
are
do.
vendors.
These niggas try to sell it all.
This is in the beginning of 2020.
So April
in the
30th
millions
came pause.
that have not received
Then
payment
we're
as
gonna
of
إلا هدد الرestaurant.
Could you, let me see, give you an email, okay?
Right, we're gonna give you an email address. We're gonna figure this out.
Keith, whenever you're ready. Keith Ellison, ELLISON at ag.state.mn.us, and just send me the names of all these folks who are just hung up and like hanging on by a thread and barely gonna, and probably ain't gonna survive unless they get their money soon. That I can take that list and start saying, and I can call Jody Harpstead, the person over at Education, and say, what is going on? Why am I getting these complaints? And start, and I'll call them in my office and demand some explanations, right?
I'm one of them. Those guys you're talking about. April 30th, I got shut down, and they put me on BIOS.
You say April?
April 30th.
Yeah.
You mean throughout the whole summer and the fall?
Yep, and
So you ain't got no money since then?
No, yeah. I have like 10 pilots sitting up to that Safari. Serial pilots, they expired. It's about like $80,000 worth.
So the lawsuit actually initiated from the restaurants, especially Safari. Safari was the largest, and obviously being the largest restaurant, they had that big old wedding hall.
Now, and the crazy part of it is that I want people to see this because this was taxpayer money. These wasn't donations. These were taxes or extra money that they received from the feds to take care of children. And that's the whole part of it is of like a lot of this went to people's, and that's why we say even with like Bobby Champion, they were able to write bills and legislation to their family and friends and leave some behind, not take everybody, because here's the one thing that I was told over and over and over again when it came to fucking with BLM, when it came to fucking with 21 Days of Peace, and we were always told they'll never fund your freedom. That's because they were too busy funding yours. They were too busy funding your generational. The same thing that I'm fighting for, I come to find out when I look at these nonprofits and I see how North Minneapolis looks. I see how Rochester looks. I see how Black areas and poor areas in Minnesota look. But then when I go to these town halls, when I go to where these representatives are at, it's never people from that community that are there speaking, because they say, oh, we're middle. This is why I don't fuck with the Green Party. This is why I don't fuck with the Poor People's Campaign, because I remember one time I was on there, and I'm going to get into this Keith Ellison shit, but it's funny to me is because I remember being in the Poor People's Campaign, and I was in a Zoom hearing one time, and I just looked and I said, damn, is that somebody got horses? How are you saying you're a poor When you have, I'm not saying that you can't be, right? But how can you consider yourself poor when you have horses running around? That means you got land somewhere. You're an owner. You can't put yourself in the same category as me or as others in urban areas. I shouldn't even say urban because I've seen legislation calling Winona urban. So I'm going to go inner city. We got to start clarifying, because when you even look at the housing disparities in Minnesota, they always want to tell you, all the blacks. Why don't they tell you the subcategories? That's the thing that fucks me up, right? Is that Minnesota is so subcategory, because they'll tell you it's blacks, but they won't tell you that it's maybe Ethiopian or Somalian. Because I will tell you right now that something that Rochester or Minnesota leaders will not tell you: who leads in house disparity in Rochester, Minnesota. It's Black Americans. It's not Somali Americans, because they went from being one of the lowest African out of the subcategories to being one of the, so it goes, I think it's Ethiopian, Nigerian, Somalian, and then it's Black Americans. So we all the way at the bottom of the totem pole. So when I go to town hall meetings, like I did Sunday, and then I see leave no one behind, but then I look at the panel, and then obviously you're leaving people behind, because those people up there speaking on that panel, I don't feel sorry for none of them. I mean, I feel sorry for their situation, but these are a bunch of rich people. Rich people. Let's go talk to in the community that have those same stories and have a different skin color. Because I will never understand of how we have community leaders that won't stand up and fight. But then I get it. When you look at the 990s, or you get on a data Republican website and you put in the nonprofits and you're looking at the boards and they're like, damn. So all this shit is again, a pyramid scheme. Just like Reverend Tim Christopher said that he was at a meeting in St. Paul men's night where the man there, Mickey Frost, said that, hey, they're going to give me $1 million and I'm going to show y'all each how to do it individually. I'm going to give y'all $100,000 each. Y'all don't talk about that shit. Why don't we talk about that in Minnesota? That's the one thing, because they want to talk about a moral budget. Moral. How can it be moral when everything that we're being told is lies? It's misinformation. And we're not getting the truth. Why is Minnesota in such a deficit? Because y'all want to keep funding initiatives and resolutions and shit that we already had. It's y'all don't want to pay attention and realize that if we're going to get freedom, if we're going to get rights, it's going to come from us. It's not going to come from begging the Democrats. It's not going to come from begging a Republican. Because you're always going to leave a community behind. You got to get up and take it. You know, that's the one crazy thing, because somebody left a message, or not a message, a comment, and said, oh, I loved your Make America Great Again hat again. It wasn't Make America Great Again. It was Make America Street Safe Again. Because America, in my eyes, has never been great. Has never been great. Never. Never. It's been good. I will tell you that it was good. Because I will tell you right now is that a lot of people get, I hear things about a race war and all that. And it's like, damn, where y'all been? There is more than just blacks and whites in America nowadays. That's the one thing that people never want to sit here and talk about and discuss, right? Is during that times, what was majority in Southern America? I'm not talking about Mexico. I'm talking about South America. I just said it. I'm talking about like Florida, Louisiana, you know, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee. I'm talking about Texas. I'm talking about areas like that, right? So when we look at that, and then we look at Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, you know, Philly, New York, those were northern states. So when it came to Jim Crow laws, there was a lot of Northerns that didn't have to go through that, you know, white and black water fountains. Because I will tell you right now, a lot of Northern, that's why we get that Minnesota nice. That's why people think it's Minnesota nice. But I'm going to tell you, it's that Minnesota passive aggressive. Because they will say all kind of shit in your face. But what are the things they're saying to others behind your back? That's that Minnesota nice. Because I will tell you right now is that I sat in a church on Sunday with all kind of elected officials and all kind of people. But you know what was missing is they were talking about they want to change poor people. But let me ask this, where were the poor people? Where were the individuals that were work at McDonald's that are fighting for a higher wage, right? Or where were the Dollar Tree clerks, cashiers? Where was the small business employees that can barely put food on their table, but want to make sure they go to work every fucking day? They weren't there because out of sight, out of mind. They want us to literally think about poor people, but they don't want to be poor people. You know, they talk about these Social Security cuts. How is it going to hurt you? You get paid by the government. So why can't you change it? Aaron Murphy, Tina Liebling, Andy Smith, Kim Hicks, Liz Bolden, Zach Stevenson. Why can't we change it? Instead of being told that, oh, my hands are tied. What do you mean your hands are tied? That's not what freedoms you. This is the one thing that I will say, right? Is everybody wants to talk about my hands are tied. No, you're not, because they can figure out ways to get away with this fraud. So your hands are tied trying to get rid of the fraud. That makes no sense. How is it that you can eradicate criminals? Because they were hard as criminals, right? Back in, you know, the drug wars, cocaine, the mass incarceration, and now they want to give people slaps on the wrist. It's kind of slowly coming back, you know, because they kind of fucked up after George Floyd. I will be honest, they really fucked up. You're seeing Illinois with the loose bails, and especially all their constituents. They don't. Some of them don't like that shit. Some of them are against some of these. And it be our people, because I will tell you right now is that they forgot about fixing our communities in our neighborhoods to turn them into communities and focused on immigration communities. That's what y'all don't want to talk about. When we talk about that great replacement theory, it's poor. It's not. Here's the one thing that I will say, right? Because everybody wants to talk about racism. Let's talk about that classism. Because I will tell you right now is that I got more in common with a racist ass nigga that y'all would call racist than I do with people that look like me. I got more in common with a white person like Molly Dennis than I do with a nigga like Bobby Champion. Make that make sense. But he's supposed to be fighting for me. This is a white woman that wants truth and transparency in our government. This is a nigga that doesn't want to see that. He says, yes, he does, but he doesn't want to see that because at the end of the day, it hurts his pockets. And if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. That's what passes legislation. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So even though there are probably tax cuts, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. Y'all going to get this consumerism. It's not about That's the one thing that I honestly want to tell people, right? Is they think it's so much about capitalism. It's consumerism. Consumerism. Because the same thing that y'all want to talk about Target, and I'm going to go back to Keith Ellison, but the same thing they talk about Target, why don't y'all do that with Meta? When y'all going to boycott Meta? When are you going to boycott Meta? Amazon? Delta Airlines? General Motors? All these people donated to Trump. And that's the one thing about it, because there's a lot of people that want to call out Jalen Hurts. Oh, he didn't go to the White House for the Eagles celebration yesterday that they had at the White House. Who cares? He probably didn't care about that. Who cares that he didn't go? A lot of people think that, well, he set it up because it was Trump. Maybe it didn't fit in with his schedule. This is the one thing that I will never understand, right? Is that a lot of people look at this shit in a narrative type of way than what it is the truth, because the narrative gets us further and we think it gets more solutions, but actually it's smoke screens than actually facing the problem that we have. And the problem that we have is that that's sports. Why are we getting involved in something that's been a tradition? No matter who the president was, it didn't matter if it was a Republican, it didn't matter if it was a Democrat. It was a tradition. These are paid athletes. These are paid athletes. So, and I will say this, we were warned. We were warned. Malcolm warned us. Because you didn't see white leaders that were athletes. You don't see Luka Doncic out here doing that shit. Oh, but yeah, what y'all gonna say? He's a foreigner. What y'all see when I see a white man? So are we gonna start in the subcategories now? Well, he's a Ukrainian or Siberian.
So basically, what we're talking about here, General Ellison, is we have systemic patterns of abuse, waste, and fraud from the departments, claiming the same from minority business owners. And we've taken it far too long, but we are not willing to operate under that paradigm anymore.
Okay.
And we are jumping into the fight with some serious money, serious organizing, and we need you in this fight with us.
No, Lord.
And I know you're going to get hit hard, but we are going to commit to backing you.
How am I going to get hit hard?
Politically.
How? From who? Where?
Opponents, establishment. They're hitting you hard all the time.
Yeah, so nothing's new.
But what we're saying is,
I'm gonna get a new hit, but I haven't.
So what we're saying is, we want to invest in
I
leaders.
showed you the letters they threatened to kill me last week.
Last week.
Yeah.
Last week, and Ilhan gets more. So.
Oh yeah. What we're saying is,
she gets every day.
We need to cultivate our leaders to fight for these communities, and not just that, to grow and develop and bring a new generation of leaders into office. And we are ready and willing to back those efforts all the way. But we need a true and steadfast partner to fight for basic justice. And that is your MO.
Well, brother, let me just tell you this.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm here to help. I mean, but let me be clear. I'm not here because I think it's going to help my reelection. I don't care about no reelection. I voluntarily threw my congressional career away. I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. It's boring to me. So to do this, to do what I'm doing now. So of course, I didn't leave that job to do nothing in this job. I mean, am I going to get more hits than I got by prosecuting a police officer and giving them life in prison? Right? So we're gonna, so let's just go fight these people. So the question is figuring out exactly how to put a stop to it, right?
Damn, that's important. Because I want people to damn, that's crazy. So he said that I voluntarily threw my congressional career away to do this. I didn't leave that job to do nothing in this job. Am I going to get more hits than I got by prosecuting a police officer and giving him life in prison? That's crazy. So my eyes, right? He understood, and that's why he said it was boring. Because there's more money in being a Minnesota Attorney General than there is in a congressional. I would have think there would have been more money in the congressional seat. But if you knew there was money from the feds, that COVID was coming, and you knew there was going to be a lockdown, you knew there was going to be all this extra money, I think the Minnesota Attorney General, because then you could run cover for certain individuals. That's why I think they went and got Andy Luger, right? So they could run cover and really do what they wanted to do, right? So this is Carol Washington, right? She was answering some questions. She's the head of the charities division in the Office of Investigatives, or the OIG, whatever the hell they want to call it. But there was some good shit said here too between Robbins and Carol.
But it is a sensitive issue to talk about how we might be looking at these organizations right now.
Thank you. And just, I know other people have questions, so I have one more just in this little vein here. So one of the concerns that's been discussed a lot at the legislature this year is once a case has been resolved, how the data is classified. And so in these cases where these charities are shut down and the investigations are over, how is that data classified under Chapter 1365?
It depends. It depends on the case. In some situations, especially where there's ongoing monitoring or enforcement mechanisms in the agreement or the court order, it may be active. If there is a complete resolution, and again, it depends on the case. I'm not speaking of any specific case here or otherwise, but if there's a complete resolution, then it would be inactive investigative data.
So would it be publicly available?
Neither active nor inactive investigative data is publicly available.
Which is quite concerning. I think that's one of the reasons we're having trouble finding some of these threads is because it's not accessible.
Right.
So would you support making closed investigative data about organizations,
Not individuals.
public?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm not gonna opine on what the legislature should or shouldn't do. If there is a specific proposal to change the Data Practices Act, we'll respond to that.
Okay.
But at this time, we're going to respect the separation of powers.
Oh, wow.
To
that answer threw me off yesterday.
And we'll weigh in on it, and if there's ever a specific legislative proposal.
Great. Thank you.
That really did throw me off yesterday when he said that. So here is another. That was, that's a longer one. I ain't playing that 8-minute one. So he's saying that it's 8 minutes long. I'm not playing that whole shit. Maybe I'll just play the summary. So Representative Walter starts a discussion about the December 2021 meeting, and the first clip is played. It seems that Walter says that it seems the primary concern there is keeping these people in business, but really they were grant recipients who are supposed to be providing services to the people.
But it is a sensitive issue to talk about how we might be looking at these organizations right now.
Thank you.
Stop it real quick. As the role that you play, as you articulated here today, is to represent the state agencies. Of course, your office was in the middle of representing the Department of Education when they were sued by Feeding Our Future. I'm concerned about the focus of keeping grant recipients in business as opposed to defending the state agencies and maintaining the integrity of taxpayer funds. Why was the focus on the business owners keeping their businesses open? Ellison, I met with constituents all the time. Overwhelmingly, most of them are good people who want to be listened to. Some of them are fraudsters. Hudson said, I find it difficult to believe you didn't have suspicion about who these people were, simply because your office had already been involved for over a year at that point in the Feeding Our Future lawsuit and defending Minnesota Department of Education, MDE. The context of this conversation is you're talking about taking the fight to these people in reference to the state agencies. Perhaps nothing happened after that, but that was certainly what was portrayed as your intention at the time. And again, my concern here is that rather than the focus being on defending your client and defending the integrity of taxpayer dollars, the overriding concern seemed to be keeping people in business. So that was basically the summary. And then a shaking up, I won't go there, but that's how they responded, right? That's what they wrote, is a shaking up Ellison response. Representative Hudson is suggesting somehow that I should have known. I do not handle every single file personally. I have a staff of 430 people who help me do these cases every day. And that's again pointing the finger at other people, and that's name blaming. That's the blame game. That's part of their game plan, is to be able to have the focus somewhere in other area than themselves.
One law firm, and Representative Hudson is suggesting somehow that I should have known that these fraudsters who were lying, not just to me, but to courts, but to the media, to the agency, that I somehow should have known. As I noted, and I said on several occasions, I do not handle every single file personally. I have a staff of 430 people, and at that time, maybe around 380, I'm not sure what the exact number is, that help me do these cases every day. These lawyers and legal workers who work on this stuff, they knew the file very well, but we're one law firm. And so, no, I don't know every single thing happened on every single file. What I do know is that our team defends state agencies all the time, that they do a good job. And I was well aware that there was a dispute between vendors and the agency. I do know that a court had found against my client. That was what had happened up to.
And again, that leaves the door open for people's own interpretation. And I think that's what the problem is. We should leave it where, and that is the problem. That even comes back to us understanding our constitutions, especially for America, the 10 Commandments. It's not left up for, interpretation. It's left up for us to read and to go by. And if we want to interpret something, because that's what we're doing right now, especially when it comes to America, we're going by interpretations, we're going by context, we're going by those periods and those eras of time. They didn't have to deal with what we have to deal with. They don't have to deal with the wild immigration, or I shouldn't say wild, but they don't have to deal with all these, the LGBTQ, the queer, the gender affirming care. They didn't have to include any of those things when they were writing the Constitution, the articles of America. They didn't have to think about those things. So this is my thing of it is, and I will continually say it, is that you have to burn it down if you're going to rebuild it. You can't rebuild something that's already broken, because it's going to continue to having more problems, because you're going to continually growing of where you're going to see other individuals want rights. And that's where we've been, because the 1965 Civil Rights Bill opened the door for that. It opened the door for gays and queers and all that shit wanting, I shouldn't say shit, but wanting rights. Because that's all I hear is like, oh, we're gonna go back to a white and black only water fountain and bathrooms. No, you may see a men and women bathroom. You ain't gonna see no black and white fountain. What are y'all crazy? This is not 1940. We're in 2025, and I'll tell you right now, we are way, way past that. You know what I will tell you is that as a generation and as a society, we are way past black and white water fountains, black and white bathrooms. But we aren't, as people yet, so progressive or liberal where we were okay with the family bathrooms. But now that, you know, if you want to be a woman, but you're a man, you can go into a woman bathroom. No, what the fuck? God gave you a dick. And I'm not, see, that's the one. I should just shut the fuck up because I'm gonna say something that probably get me in trouble. Canceled, whatever y'all want to say. But I don't see it that way. And I understand that, you know, some people will call it God gave us man or a woman. Y'all don't get to choose. You know, that's the one crazy part, because there's a lot of individuals. America, man has made us able to turn a man into a woman or a woman into a man. That's not God's work. That's the work of a devil. That's the work of one thing that we've read all throughout history. That's the thing that witches do. Those are the things that all types of villains. So why are we getting involved in it? If those are one thing that the Bible called out, if we're going by Bible times, right? And that's why I say we need a separation from the church and from our politics. And there isn't. In our states, there isn't. Because we're doing town halls in churches, not schools anymore. Why don't y'all go do it in a school? That's one thing I'll never understand. Riverside was right down the street. Sure, there was plenty of places in the auditorium at Mayo, JM. Y'all let Walls do a town hall at JM. I know their auditorium, our gymnasium fits more than 500 people. Why do we got to go to a church? Because then, this is my thing of it is, y'all made it really nonpartisan. Really nonpartisan, and it wasn't even bipartisan. It was an all democratic, progressive, liberal, socialist, whatever the fuck you wanted to call that. But it was not for the people. I can say that. It wasn't for everyday poor people that are, you know, that's the one crazy thing. Because I wonder how many people were paid and how much their salaries, because I know that every state legislator and representative that was up there got the per diem, and they're supposed to be part-time of $51,000, right? How many people in that church made under $20,000 last year? So while they were talking about, because y'all were more worried about middle class, not poor people. That's all I heard. I heard things about middle class and rich people. I heard nothing about poor people, because when the disabled came up there, y'all, even though I heard a lot of clapping for them, and I expected that, because that's y'all type of crowd. Everything that y'all think that it is good, y'all just, but when it came time to the truth, there was a lot of the legislators being questioned of answers that nobody really wants to ask them. Then it was because I remember when the lady brought up homelessness, and when she got done talking, I started clapping, because I felt that's the one crazy part that I will never understand, right? Is that even when them town halls, they be up there lying their asses off, and we know it, and we're clapping. I don't understand that shit. I will never, never, never understand that shit. Because I'm like, what are y'all talking about? And here's the thing of it is that at that town hall, you weren't speaking for poor people. You weren't speaking for Dollar General employees. You weren't speaking for Dollar Tree employees. You weren't speaking for the people like Dairy Queen, Quick Trip. You were speaking for Mayo employees. You were speaking for state employees. You were speaking for nonprofits. You weren't speaking for the people. You weren't even trying to listen to the people. That's one thing that I will say. So I definitely will say that. I guess I want to start with Tyre Nichols first with his mama. Because, yeah, there is 2 trials going on. I know a lot of people maybe don't want to be focused on that. But there is a trial going on right now. In Memphis for the murder of Tyre Nichols. And that was, everybody knows because of police officers in Memphis. Even though that's the one crazy part. You're going to see, this is Tyre Nichols' mom, and she testified yesterday. And I really want people to watch and learn. And especially because these are 2 of the biggest trials in America. And they should be. They definitely should be. You have 3 police officers, black officers. And this has never been done before. And then the racial makeup and all the problems. I shouldn't even say the racial makeup that we have in America. But the problems that we have in America, we're still not over that fuck the police phase. We're still not over that America should burn phase. And honestly, is this the thing that could set it off? Because I know last night I was sitting here watching TV, as I kept on getting, and I'll play it when I'm done with both these stories, is that there was protests going on, and New York was getting out of control. Brooklyn was getting out of control. New York City was getting out of control. And I'm still seeing that in areas of California. I'm starting to see that in Seattle, Portland, Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul. You're seeing these little people are coming out in forces again. They're coming out, but I'm starting to see that everybody's wearing masks. They're doing that, so are we going to see something that we should have seen during George Floyd? Is it even going to be bigger? Are there all 3 of the things going to be there to fearmonger people, to scare people? So with that being said, here is Tyre Nichols' mom testifying yesterday in the ex-officer's trial.
Leader, the mother of Tyre Nichols testifying for the first time about the beating death of her son, allegedly at the hands of former Memphis police officers. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Hurst.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Skurlock. Gripping testimony today from Rovon Wells as she saw her son's injuries for the first time. All of this playing out at the Criminal Justice Center as the first day of trial got underway today for Darius Bean, Justin Smith, and Demetrius Haley. WRG's April Thompson is live at the courthouse covering the case. April, is Tyre's mother still on the stand?
2 years after her son's death, Rovon Wells.
Well, Stephanie, Greg, they came back from a break and Rovon Wells was finished testifying. No one had any other questions for her, and the judge decided they would call it a wrap for today. But what Rovon Wells said showed the emotion involved in this case. Tyre's mother talked about how police told her her son was being aggressive, and they asked if he was a drinker. She says none of it added up and sounded like Tyre. Then, when she finally saw him in the hospital, she was stunned.
I walked into the room and I saw my son. I immediately went over to him and I fell out on him because my son was beaten to a pulp. His head was the size of a watermelon. His nose was broken. His neck was split open from the swelling. He was bruised from head to toe. It was like they beat the out of him. That's what they did. They beat the out of my son and left him for dead.
Rovon Wells there on the stand for less than an hour as she was questioned by prosecutors. Defense attorneys, none of them had any questions for her. And the judge said because of the lateness of the hour, they would go ahead and call it a wrap for today. So he let the jury go and court ended because they say the next witness that they plan to call tomorrow morning will be someone who will be on the stand for a very long time. No word exactly who that is, but we're hearing it may be one of the other officers testifying against these three. Of course, we will be here in court with the very latest to bring you right here live. Reporting live for your news leader in downtown Memphis, April Thompson, WREG News Channel 3.
All right.
So, man, I'm going to tell you like this, and I'm not going to say it. I'm not saying it to fearmonger people, but we see America and how it can play tricks on us, right? So I don't want people to get in their feelings because I don't want that. I mean, I do. I'm not saying that I don't. But I want change. I don't want us to be out here protesting for nothing. Because I will tell you right now, there is days where I feel like, especially when the memories come up, right? And what's changed? I've been a part of resolutions. You know, and that's the one thing, because I was hyped up when I got those resolutions passed. When I got those passed, I was hyped. I was hyped. But what have they done? Because I still sit here and listen to Black mothers. I listen to white mothers who have mixed kids. And they're still, like Red Wing, Minnesota, Owatonna, St. Cloud, Duluth. And I hear racial stories, even in Minneapolis. And what do? Nothing. We have resolutions proclaiming racism a public health crisis. What gets done because it's still a public health crisis? You know, people tell me, oh, this was happening way before social media. Well, it's happening more. I don't know if it's because it's in our face more often, but it's happening. And what are we going to do about it? How are we going to change it? Because it isn't just, that's the one crazy part about think about it, right? It isn't just about Patrick Loyola and Tyree Nichols. Because there's more people out here that have died for the same reasons, the color of their skin. And they're both Black. And they're both being judged. You know, you had I know this is a different trial and I'm going to get into that. And this is the Patrick Loyola one. And the guy that was the taser specialist and, you know, from Axon, the maker of the taser and the body cameras was there. You know, so he's a Resnick or whatever. And it's crazy to hear that we need to bring those type of people in to make people understand that not much really happens when you don't have no clips in the taser, because a dry tase isn't the same when you have the, what do they want to call those things, the propel jets, whatever, the hooks, the stingers, and people die. How many people have we seen die over? We always want to say, oh, they were armed or they had guns in the car or that doesn't give you the right to shoot them. That doesn't, you know, that's the one crazy part that I heard, right? Because I was talking to Vale this weekend and I was telling her about the Mario Smith. And I said, you know, they said he had a gun in his hand. And I said, but that still doesn't make it right. Just because he had a gun in his hand, are you going to demonize him, something that is our Second Amendment right to protect ourselves? So I understood it because I was like, damn, it shouldn't matter if he was armed or unarmed. It should matter if the police label themselves police, label themselves as, because I will tell you, what do we see in America? We see police kill Americans. Doesn't matter if they're Black, doesn't matter if they're Hispanic, doesn't matter if they're Latino, doesn't matter if they're Native, doesn't matter if they're Asian, doesn't matter if they're white. Police kill people. right? And how many videos that we see every day of interactions with people in the police saying, well, they don't fuck with the police, they don't like the police, and they feel some type of way. You know, I sat and watched this interview yesterday with Patrick Leola's friend, Jimmy Barwin, and he said he hasn't been the same. You know, when police get behind you on the lights and you hear the sirens, and it does change you. That's something that people never want to talk about. You know, and I say this again, it was so good talking to Val over this weekend because I understood the fight that she goes through. You know, and there is people that are corrupt. There is people that don't listen and still get voted in. There is people that cause trauma and harm in our neighborhoods and communities. And it's not just the inner cities, it's the rural areas too. Because I know plenty of women, mothers, single business owners in Wabasha that were screwed over by the same people that were supposed to be there for them, that were supposed to protect them, not screw them over, but because they could use it for political purposes, they wanted to screw them over and make it seem like certain individuals are crazy. See, that's the way it works, is because as long as it's the media, it's political officials, it's people of authority, or it's people of titles, we believe it. So when the person goes here and stands up for themselves, we don't, because there's so many people like a state senator or a district attorney or police chief that say that's not the story. So then again, because they have those titles, we believe it. Even though we know that they're lying, we still believe it. And that's crazy as hell to me. I will never understand that. And how many stories in America do you see, do you know, where our system has done wrong, and instead of turning them people in, you have more individuals look the other way until it finally, the wheels fall off. That's the same way that happened down in Georgia. And Val was talking about that. The Rainbow House. And it's crazy how still we're having individuals talk about that and nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. We're still sitting here fighting for a better tomorrow. Fighting for a better tomorrow. I will never understand that. But here you go with the trial of Chris Scher, who is accused of murdering. See, and I hate I got to use words like that because we all seen the video. And I know we're going to have different views on it, but let's have a view. Let's take the politics out of it. Let's take the color out of it. And then let's make a decision on human being to human being. Was Christopher Scher in the right? Because police are trained not to shoot people in the back and even in the head. So how can we find that is right just because one is labeled a police officer and one is named a criminal? Y'all want to label them a criminal. Could have been the, you know what I'm saying? How come the police officer has to be good and the black man got to be bad? Why can't it be the black man be good and the officer be bad? Because I'll tell you right now, apples don't fall far from the tree.
Pop, like the third step from the floor. I heard a pop, and then I looked, and then he stepped back and he said, "Officer involved shooting."
First tonight, we're following the trial of former Grand Rapids police officer Christopher Scher, charged in the death of Patrick Leoya.
The trial started this morning and comes 3 years after Leoya's death. Scher is charged with second-degree murder. The jury must decide if his actions during the deadly traffic stop are considered murder. Jurors heard from 8 different witnesses during the first day of testimony, among them a friend of Leoya's who was a passenger in the car when the two were approached by Scher, and a neighbor who saw most of it unfold in his front yard.
Did he have to kill him? Then of course we're trying to arrest him. But I think when you look at all the evidence and look at the end, you come to a conclusion. The answer is no.
This was not murder. This was survival. 2 very different takes on what happened that day in April 2022.
Jurors saw video, heard from 8 witnesses, including 2 men who witnessed the confrontation that led to Patrick Lyoya's death. Video was played in court showing when Lyoya was pulled over by Christopher Shore for having a bad plate on his car.
The plate doesn't belong in this car.
That later led to a struggle over Shore's taser.
It was 2 people going back and forth.
Like fighting?
It looked like.
The struggle happened in this neighbor's front yard.
He's out of his car. That was the first thing. I'm like, man, you're supposed to get out of the car.
He says Lyoya wouldn't obey, but he says he also never saw him punch, kick, or threaten the officer. He says he watched as the officer fired the taser at Lyoya, hitting him in the chest without success. As the two were wrestling over the taser, the neighbor says he pleaded with Lyoya to give up.
Like, just stop. Whatever you're doing, just stop.
Single gunshot wound, right to the back of the head. That's what killed Patrick Lyoya on a cold, wet, rainy day back in April 2022.
Prosecutor Chris Becker told the jury the shooting was not justified. He says Lyoya had no intention of hurting Shore. He says they fought over a taser that had been fired twice, so it was no longer dangerous.
We're not saying he shouldn't have been arrested. Patrick committed crimes. There's no question about that. He committed the crime. He was driving without a license plate. He didn't have a driver's license. He resisted arrest. He pulled away.
The defense argued Shore was doing his job that day when he stopped Lyoya's car for having an invalid license plate. They also say Lyoya ignored 29 lawful commands and that the taser was a potentially deadly weapon.
Let go of the taser. Let go of the taser. Drop the taser. Those are the final commands that Officer Shore gave to Mr. Lyoya before he was forced to make a decision he hoped never to have to make. He didn't choose to take a life. He chose to save his own.
And the trial is going more quickly than expected. 8 of the prosecutor's 11 witnesses testified today. Testimony will continue tomorrow.
The judge previously ruled the defense could not discuss Lyoya's criminal history, saying that it wasn't relevant because Shore did not identify him before the shooting.
As the trial continues tomorrow, make sure to stay with News 8. We'll have team coverage.
Man. I don't even know what to say about those. About the Tyree Nichols case or Patrick Lyoya. I know that we have to stop. Wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter. We can't turn a right. We can't turn a wrong into a right because of a label, because a person has a title. Wrong is wrong. Doesn't matter. That's the one crazy part, right? Is because, a lot of people want to say, oh, the president's a felon. Well, I don't care. Well, then why is it that the rest of America, we get labeled and judged because we're felons? Because we did the same thing that he did. Have a felony. Well, some people say, well, it was a political. How wasn't it political when there's black people that are behind bars and innocent? And all we've seen is legislation, mass incarceration, the drug wars. And all we've seen is who gets hurt by that, poor communities. It's not the rich. It's the rich that get put out on blast. That's the one crazy thing, because I remember when the pills got out of hand, and this is way before fentanyl, you had overdoses. It wasn't a really big thing, but people were getting addicted to opioids because they were so addictive. And then you started to see that it was really honestly big pharma. Those were the drug dealers, because I will tell you right now is that little pill industry turned it from being, it was all about crack, cocaine, heroin, until now we're going to make these pills, Xanax, what do they call them? Not Xannies. Damn, I can't think of the word right now. But the little 30 pills, the blue pills, right? And all the kids are ODing. I shouldn't even say kids, but people are ODing. And there's fentanyl mixed. And these are the same devices that you can buy from Amazon You can buy from Walmart. You can buy from Target. You can buy from Temu. And these are things that you can do in your basement. You can do in a storage room. You can do in a trailer. The same thing with meth. See, we blossomed. It was all about crack cocaine. Then it was about heroin. Then it was about meth. Then we had all the other drugs. God, I can't even think of the names. I want to say ACDC. I don't know why. I don't know why that came up. But acid. All those things. And still yet, we do nothing. We do nothing. Right. And it's gotten out of hand. It has. You know, and that's the one thing that I will never understand is because all this harm reduction, right? I'm not against it. I was big in harm reduction when it first came out. You know, at least when I will say this because when I first got introduced to harm reduction, I shouldn't say when it first came out. I just wanted to help people. You know, I wanted to, there should be a way to get through this without having to charge people because we're just going at drug addicts. We're just going at people that want to get high. Like, beam me up, Scotty. Like, why don't we get all at the people that are feeding their addictions? Right? Why don't we nip that in the bud? And actually, when we go at that, let's go at the people that are able to make it happen. That sell pill machines that on the market, pill pressings, because that's what we're seeing. We've seen so many fake pills since 2020 that I will tell you right now is that with George Floyd, that man swallowed so much fentanyl and that people don't even know still today what kind of fentanyl it was. Was it illicit? Because nobody asked that question. What kind of fentanyl was in his system? Was it the illicit kind that was synthetic? That's not in hospital form? Or was it the hospital fentanyl? Because that would make a hell of a difference. And that would, to be honest, that still needs to be decided because I will tell you right now, the levels that of fentanyl he had in his system, that was an OD. I'm not saying that he was killed by an OD, but that was enough fentanyl in his system to kill somebody. Because we've seen what little sniffs can do to police officers. It can put them into overdose. I'm not saying that fentanyl killed George. I'm not saying that was the main cause. What I'm saying is that we don't know what type of fentanyl it was. We don't know if it was illicit. And if you look at his death report, medical examiner's report, it doesn't list what kind of fentanyl. It just says he had a lot of fentanyl in his system. And now we know that there's a difference between regular fentanyl because some people think that you still can't smoke fetty. And like, what are these people putting in the little tin foil and smoking? And you smell burnt popcorn everywhere. You think that's just they're smoking tin foil? I mean, I'm sure some are smoking crack. I'm sure some are smoking meth. But I'll tell you right now is that, and this is the thing that, you know, the government doesn't want to confess to, is that you have more niggas involved today getting arrested for fentanyl. It's the fact that our government doesn't want to do its job and protect the people because they'll let a weapon of mass destruction go to our kids, go to our elders, go to our loved ones, and nothing is done about it. So is anything going to be done until, that's the one thing I wonder, Joe Biden's son Hunter would have OD'd on coke. Well, they had finally done something because, you know, Joe been in politics 47 years. He was up in Washington between the local politics and the politics at the Capitol. He'd been up there. So what if Hunter would have OD'd? Do you think we would have been, something would have been different? Because then we would have had an executive sibling, an executive member their family died. I do honestly believe we would have fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction if we would see one of Trump's kids OD. If we would see Barron OD off of Fetty, if we seen Eric, our junior, because they thought what they were taking, even if they were taking drugs, right? But they took that pill because all it takes is once. All it takes is once. The same way that some of our family members have died. It just takes one. It takes one pill. And that's why, you know, what's crazy is I tell this all the time in Rochester. You know, I tell people, I know that people have OD'd. I know people have died. And I say, listen, if I find out that, you know, my daughter had OD'd and one of those pills came from you little niggas, oh, this, you're going to see a different Chaz. I can tell you that. You're not going to see what they, I'm not going to walk on eggshells around you niggas anymore. Eat like I do now. Like I do now. But then I started to notice that you niggas ain't at the meetings I go to. Even though you want to send threats or whatever, y'all ain't going to pull up. And here's the thing of it is, I want y'all to pull up. I want the niggas in Rochester that is so bowdy to pull up. If they don't like what I'm saying, pull up. Because I'm going to tell you like this. I'm going to be way more active around Rochester. Way more active. Yeah, he going hard. He is going hard. But I will tell you like this. If one of the Trumps died from fentanyl, from an OD, he going harder at fentanyl than I ever have seen in my life. Any drug that, here's the thing that I'm talking about. If any kind of Trump, right? If Barron or Donald Jr., Eric, or any of the kids, grandkids, died from an overdose of fentanyl, I can guarantee you that Cash Patel, Pam Bondi, they are gonna, you ain't never seen no war on drugs in your life. I can tell you that much. I'll be straight up and honest. If any of them members, because we've seen it with Congress members, their children have died from overdoses. We haven't really seen no change, but I'll tell you right now, you see one of them, somebody in the executive house die from an overdose. We're going to see change. And we're going to see it by any means necessary. The fentanyl is a deliberate population reduction scheme, birth control, abortion. Yeah, that LGBTQ, man, that shit wild. I'm not against it, but it's like, we started off LGBTQ. Now y'all done added so many other little initials onto it. And it's like, this is why I can't take people serious. You know what I'm saying? It's like, first we went from, why can't somebody just be gay? Y'all got to put pronouns, or you got to put you non-binary, or listen, we didn't grow. I'm not saying that I'm not against it. What I'm saying is that who cares what you want to be? It's the fact that y'all wanted the same rights that you already have, but you want them same rights because you feel obligated or privileged because you're queer, because you're gay, because you're trans. You already have those. Use the ones you have. You want more. That's the one crazy part that I will never understand, because we're sitting here and have to accept when we can't even, black people can't even still be accepted. Black people can't even be accepted. We still have problems, not in my backyard, when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to people with mental health. That's why we see the things that we've seen in America today. Why? Sex offenders are so lenient. We're lenient on sex offenders. We're lenient on drug offenders. But we, on the people that are innocent, on people that have been railroaded, that's why I see those long ass sentences. And then I've seen the things with, Minnesota's a fucked up place to be. I will say like that. I will tend like that. That's what I think about Andy Smith. He the other one. He the other one. I can't stand Andy Smith. And I was disappointed about, I was disappointed about Sunday, because I went there. I thought Carla Nelson was going to be there. She was. I knew she was invited, but then when I seen what church it was at, who was promoting the event, even though they wanted to say that it was bipartisan or no partisan, you're a lie. That was a Democratic, progressive. You could tell it the minute you went in the doors because all you seen is the LGBTQ colors. Y'all made it known that this was an event. Instead of being a nonpartisan event and making it seem like it was a nonpartisan event, that's not the way that it went. Because I will tell you like this, the minute you went through the door, you knew that what kind of event it was. And I have no disrespect to these people. None. And then when you never mind it, I'll stop it. When the imam I ain't gonna stop it. When the imam got up there and praying inside the church for the people, I was done. I said, this is crazy as hell. You're gonna have a Muslim imam come in here in a Christian church and try to pray, man, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. You mean to tell me that you're gonna go into a whole nother religion? I was done. I was done. I said, that's crazy as hell. Crazy as hell. And then when they wanted to talk about the new Americans, they didn't want to talk about Black Americans. They wanted to talk about new Americans. They wanted to talk about the illegal health care that they're over 600. I don't even get it, man, because there's so much misinformation. There's so much. And y'all bite it. Y'all go with it instead of doing your own digging and seeing that, I'm glad a lot of people are talking about the homeschool bill. 1740, House File 1740. I am glad people are talking about that because they are seeing the stipulations because they see the numbers that are going in enrollment in public education. They're seeing that illegals and new Americans are enrolling their kids, but Americans aren't. We're done with a lot of Americans. A lot of people doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're Black. We're starting to understand it. Right. We're starting to understand it that it's not for us. It's not built. I will tell you like now that public education, no matter if it comes to the higher, lower, K through 12, Head Start, we have gone into not everybody learning to indoctrinating these kids. I will say it like that. And to be honest, I think about this all the time. Is at Rochester, my daughter went to Mayo, and I remember meeting one of her friends. I don't like to say the boyfriend, whatever, but talking about I'm pansexual. I said, "What the fuck is that?" And this was I think she was a freshman, sophomore, but she went to Mayo. We were at a football game, and I was like, "Man, let me hold on. I gotta go use the bathroom, bro." So I was like, "Now I gotta go pee or whatever." So I went to go use the bathroom, and I Googled what pansexual, what the definition was, and I was like, "This is what they teaching these y'all little niggas." Because until she got to high school, I didn't hear about that shit, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents out here that have kids that are either trans, or either lesbian, or gay. Or we've all gone through these phases. I'll tell you right now, and I don't mean to embarrass them, but my own kids, they've gone through their phases where they felt like they were gay. You know what I'm saying? They felt like they wanted the same sex. But as they've gotten older, they see that's not what they want to be about. That's not what so it was like them. In my eyes, I know some people get mad at me or whatever, but it was about cosplay. It was about them being more accepted in communities that nobody was accepting them in their own, where they wanted to be accepted. So they wanted to look in other places. And we always want to join them. We don't ever want to beat them. We always want to join. I don't understand that. We always want to join them. And I don't get it because neither party, and it's just not about Republicans or Democrats, because neither party wants, we have to make them want us. That I'm not just talking about for black people. I'm talking about for poor people, because we are the ones that are left out. We are the ones that they are not discussing. Because when it comes to the DMC in Minneapolis, I mean, not Minneapolis, in Rochester, when it comes to, so many other things, it's like, come on, when are y'all going to finally talk about it? And I still won't understand of how we don't talk about what's happening in our communities, right? Because there's so many people that are suffering. There's so many people that are silent. And I'm going to say it for what? Because I thought the whole thing of this is right, is when we know better, we do better. So why isn't it more people trying to know better? Why isn't there more people trying to know better? I don't understand that. Why isn't there more people trying to know better? Why isn't there more people trying to know better? Huh? Let me ask that. Why isn't there more people trying to know better so we can do better? Aren't y'all tired of suffering the way that we are? Because we don't have to leave nobody behind. There's enough for everybody. Everybody, there's enough. We don't have to leave nobody behind. While they wanted to name their town hall that, as we leave people behind. You know what I'm saying? There's enough for everybody. Enough for everybody. So with that being said, we're going to get up out of here today. We talked about twisters and blackouts. We talked about Ellison's foggy memory and his Feeding Our Future scandal. We talked about Memphis and Tyree Nichols, and the trial begins down there about the ex-Memphis police officers. We talked about Patrick Loyola. And really what that trial is about, it's his license to kill, right? So I really want people to watch that. And then I started off the episode with Louis Blaze and New Love. And that's what I want people to rejoice in, right? So with that being said, and thank you for being on here, Joe. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pam. And that's the one thing that I will say before I get up out of here is that on Sunday, I didn't even know who Joe was, but I got to meet him, just for a brief minute. But even Molly Dennis, it was, I had sent her emails before. She sat down next to me and I was like, hey, Molly, people they're not going to talk to you with me near. So I enjoyed Sunday, even though that it wasn't what I was expecting. The question that I've asked to the legislators up there that day, I felt like means something, and about the homelessness and about our veterans. These are all things they wanted to talk about healthcare. But what they wouldn't throw in there was illegal healthcare that we're paying for. So with that being said, man, I want you to have a great day, a great Tuesday, and I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And with that being said, I'm going to get up out of here with Try That in the Hood, featuring me and Circumstantial Saint. And I'll see y'all tomorrow, same time, same place. The Urban Conservative.
Circumstantial. They forget they were bred and made to be slaves, not like us, but quite like us. Made to disgust and lost in the dust. Slave to the system, slave mentality. Calling fact fiction can't make sense of reality. Ain't even worth a mention. QAnon, my futon, hold it up and smoke it. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for. You seek attention from those you won't come nowhere near. And say come to your town, you ain't got shit but your beard. And hate can't tell gay from straight, and hate the next cause you choose not to debate. Get irate cause the system, but get irate cause the system, but get irate cause the system takes.
The Urban Conservative. We'll try that in the hood. 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 We'll try that. Being black and walking on the sidewalk, kidnapped at a red light. Owner of the liquor store pulled a gun, cause I had my hood up. They think it's cool. Well, I act like a racist if you like. Cop cusses me out and spits in my face, stomping on my First and Fourth Amendment rights, and gaslighting me up. Yeah, you think you're tough. Yeah, you think you're tough. Well, try that in the hood. See how far you make it down the street. Around here, we take care of our village. You cross that line, it won't take long. You can fuck around and find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in the hood. Got a gun the government gave me. They say one day they're gonna clean up the police department. Cause the shit they pull. Well, try that in the hood. Well, try that in the hood. Well, try that. Might fly in a small town. Good luck. Try that in a big city.